Okay, so good afternoon, distinguished guests and colleagues and students. It is indeed an honor to extend a warm welcome to our guest speaker who joined us today from Nigeria, Ms. Chizoba Nizako. I will start first by introducing Ms. Chizoba to the audience and our participants. Today, physically today here on campus. So Ms. Chizoba is a prominent figure in climate action, an award-winning climate champion, innovator, researcher, advocate, and entrepreneur. She is the founder and CEO of Climate Technology Solutions, Zoba Advisory, and Caroline Rafael Events. Her dedication to climate advocacy has earned her numerous awards, including recognition by the Aspen Institute at the Aspen Ideas Climate Summit in Miami Beach 2023 and the African SDG Achievers Award 2023 by the African SDG Summit. So we are really feeling honored to have Ms. Chizoba with us today. Let's also extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelist and dear colleague and friend, Dr. Shizon Obaboko, who is assistant professor in economics and at General Global Law School and associate fellow at the Higher Education Academy at General Global University. So before we start, please join me in the warm welcome to Ms. Chizoba Nizako and Dr. Shizon Obaboko.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor, for the introduction.
You are most welcome.
Can you hear me?
So please, Ms. Chizoba, we will continue our introduction. Let's introduce first the topic of our today's session to the audience and participants here on campus. So today we are gathered to discuss a pressing global issue with profound implications for Africa, climate change and sustainability concerns in Africa. So as you are aware, Africa's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is relatively small at 7.2%, yet it is the region most severely affected by climate change. Of course, many factors, including limited economic diversification, challenges in accessing necessary technologies and information for adaptation, and heavy reliance on agro-economic systems have left African livelihoods vulnerable to climate events. So to commence our session, we will begin first with Ms. Chizoba's presentation on climate change and sustainability concerns in Africa, and she will focus on myths and facts about climate change, followed by our discussion section. Ms. Chizoba, you can please start your presentation.
Thank you very much once again, Professor, and thank you so much, the audience. I'm very happy to be here. I feel like it's an honor to be here as well to talk about climate change and sustainability concerns in Africa. Well, first, climate change, I would say, it's not a change in weather pattern, as most people would say. And I would also say that it's as a result of the activities of man that has brought about this climate change crisis. And sustainability, we'll be looking at ways we can adapt and ways we can mitigate, right? Since we are facing this crisis, like what ways are we thinking that we can, what other alternatives are we thinking that we can take? What other measures do we think that we can take to ensure sustainability? Yeah, so that's what I would be talking about today, the concerns in Africa currently. Thank you once again. So yeah, my name is Chizoba and I'm from Climate Technology Solutions. And please, yeah, move on to the next slide. Let's move on quickly. Thank you.
Yes.
Not to be, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please.
Okay. So most times when we talk about climate change, we try our best not to use too many technical terms because we don't want some people to feel like it is not their thing. Because when you come to Africa, a lot of people tell you that maybe it's for the policymakers, maybe it's for the scientists, maybe it's for the UNFCCC. So we try as much. When I talk about climate change, I try not to use too many technical terms so that a lot of people are able to grasp what it is and understand the crisis and try to, at the end of the day, take action. That is what we want everybody to do, take climate actions. So climate change is an urgent issue that demands our immediate attention. It brings about severe consequences such as rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and biodiversity loss. In Africa, I want to use my country for example. We have a lot of flash floods. We have, as a result of the rising sea levels, and also we have erosions. And it has not only damaged lives and property, it also has damaged, livelihoods of people, and as well, it also has damaged the planet, and it's also causing from. So we're looking at things from economical to social crisis now, not even just planetary crisis. So when we talk about taking climate actions, we are looking at something that at the end of the day, it serves both people and planet. So it is a collective thing. It's a collective, it's a crisis that is affecting each and every one of us. So let's say for Kenya, in Kenya, we have issues like land degradation. We have issues like droughts that is actually affecting their plants and their livelihoods as well. When you go to East Africa, even when you go to Egypt, I was in Egypt last year at COP27. I also saw the issues that the climate change crisis as it's affecting them. And even when you leave Africa and you go to Europe, they still face the same issue. When you go to Canada, you hear of wildfires. I don't know how many people heard of the wildfires that happened in the USA recently, burnt down a whole town. So you can imagine how adverse the issue is. And yet some people are still living in the belief that it's just weather patterns. This is more than a change of weather patterns, right? So yeah, to combat climate change, global efforts have been made. That's including the Paris Agreement, which aims to limit the global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And yeah, one of the achievements we are looking at is that, okay, by 2050, by 2030, there's more of why we are going to all of those conferences, making negotiations, and doing delegations and all of those things. It's not because we want to attend conferences, it's because we are looking for ways, to as in combat this issue. If you look at the climate summit in Africa recently, you see a lot of investment going to agriculture. You see a lot of investment going into renewable energy sector. All of those things is not just even for the planet alone, also for the to help people, the people as well, because this has affected both our livelihoods. So we're looking for a way that we can be able to build our economy, not sustain our planet, because when there is no earth, where are we going to stay? I made a post recently as about there is no Airbnb in Mars, so we can only visit Mars, but definitely we cannot just go there to stay. So we have to take actions because we only have Earth as our home. So yeah, achieving net zero emissions is crucial in this context, where the amount of greenhouse gases being emitted into the atmosphere is balanced by the amount being removed. And energy trends also plays. I'm actually going to key in on energy trends. I'll talk much about energy trends because I'm working in the energy sector. So energy trends play a vital role in driving the net zero transition today. Today we will explore these trends and their impact and other sustainability measures. So we are not just going to look at energy trends, we also look at the transportation sector. We also look at policies. We also look at businesses, like how can we collectively, drive this change? Because I believe in the audience, who have different people tomorrow who can be policymakers. We have other people who can own, businesses. And then we'll have other people who can maybe work in the transportation sector or in the energy sector. So we need, when we go out there, we need everyone to be able to take on their own action, do something. Whether you find yourself in a remote village, whether you find yourself in the urban sector, I believe that we can actually do something as regards to combating climate change crisis. Please, the next slide. Yeah, in the picture, you can see one of the effects of the climate change crisis. And like I said, climate change poses significant challenges and threats to our planet, from rising sea level rise. I'm giving like most of the cases in Africa, because we don't have, most places we don't have things like snowfalls. So in Europe, the climate change crisis, the effect can be different from the ones we see in Africa. And when you come to Africa, because of we have like a lot of natural resources, we're going into mining, we're going into oil exploration. So we have a lot of things that, affects us differently from when you go to Europe. So we have rising sea level rise, extreme weather events such as hurricanes and wildfires, and then loss of biodiversity are some of the ramifications we face. And urgent action is needed to mitigate and adapt climate change in order to protect our environment and future generations. So it's not just now. When we talk about sustainability, we're looking at future generations, future businesses, like things that we can do that can help us both now and on the long run. Next slide, please. Now, the net zero transition. What exactly is the net zero transition? The net zero transition involves transitioning from fossil fuel-based energy resources to renewables energy solutions. Various sectors such as the energy sector, transportation sector, industry must undergo significant transformation to achieve this transition. Technological advancement and innovation will be key drivers in enabling this shift. One of the best ways to disseminate knowledge is to actually carry out research, or you start thinking of innovative solutions that you think that you can develop to help us combat this climate change crisis. One of the reasons why I started climate technology solutions was I was working in the energy sector, and I was seeing some lapses that would affect the transition of the transition in going into clean energy solutions. So I thought, okay, I can actually research about these things and try to find out solutions that can be created. So one of the best way to disseminate knowledge is not just to store it. You need to use that knowledge at the end of the day to create solutions. So I'm hoping by the end of this lecture that we'll be able to think about innovative solutions that we can create to combat this climate change crisis. And also, we talked about various sectors such as the energy sector, the transportation sector, and industries. These places consume a lot of energy. So we want to move from using this fossil-based fuel energy, which has caused a lot of havoc. When you come to my country, if you go to a place called the Niger Delta region, where we have like most of the oil resources, and where the oil exploration is being done, you will cry, because their own farmlands, it has affected not just the farmlands, it has affected their sea, like the fishes are dying and everything, and also the lands, they are not able to grow crops there, and it has affected their lives as well, because it brought about bandits, it brought about vandalization, it brought about a whole lot of things. So people are dying, not just both animals, both people, both crops, everything is dying just because of this oil exploration. So you could see how much this crisis is causing, like how much this fossil fuel based energy is causing, like the problems it's causing, not just even the climate change crisis now. I'm just talking about other issues, right? Like the livelihoods of people, the lives of people. And then when you now come to when you now talk about the gas emissions, that's a whole new story altogether. So we need to move into we need to look at other alternative measures that we can use to combat this climate change crisis. And remember, the key word is, we're thinking about sustainability measures, sustainability concerns in Africa. So what can we do, while moving away from this oil based energy? What can we do? How better can we do it? And it requires collective action from me, from you, from everybody, even the people who thinks maybe that are not educated, they have a role to play as well. Next slide, please. So now we're going to look at some of the climate and energy trends for net zero transition. So here we have renewable energy sources like solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal are fundamental to the net zero transition, right? But when it comes, one of the things that gives me joy of recent in Africa is the utilization of wind energy farms, and as well, more and more people are actually using solar panels. Now, we have a very critical issue in Africa. We have like energy poverty in Africa, right? So using solar panels is sort of an alternative measure into combating that. So when you don't have power from the grid, you as well can utilize solar energy, right, for your own consumption. Imagine trying to join this meeting today and I don't even know, and there's a blackout in the whole of my country, in the whole of my city. Currently, as I'm speaking to you, there's a blackout. Now, if I didn't have maybe another alternative source of energy, I wonder how I would have joined this meeting. So these are some of the benefits of actually using this technology. And yeah, when we go to other sources of energy, these sources are becoming increasingly cost effective. You know, when solar panel came out, a lot of people had these issues. Even farmers that were even asking to buy wind turbines and all of those things, they had the issue that, oh, it is expensive, it is this and then it is that. But now in Africa, we with a lot of incentives coming from um from banks like AFDB. We have a lot of incentives also coming from government. And yeah, we also have businesses that are ensuring that people are able to utilize this energy. People are able to buy this energy just by paying in installments, you know, without breaking the banks. So we have solutions as regards that. So this is one way we can, you know, think of combating this climate change crisis by utilizing clean and yeah, we want it to be clean, not only, we also want it to be affordable as well. So I would say, yeah, this is one of the way we can combat this crisis by, you know, utilizing this clean and affordable energy. So advantages of renewables, the advantages of renewable go beyond reducing greenhouse gas emissions, like I said initially. They also contribute to local job creation and energy security. Please, can we go to the next slide? So we have, you know, like I said, we have various advantages. It helps in energy efficiency, is vital in reducing energy demand and achieving net zero targets. So apart from the fact that this would even help with energy efficiency, it's also going to create local jobs for us. I tell you the truth, ever since the renewable energy sector came into play, a lot of people have been able to get jobs. A lot of people have been able to get like start businesses. There have been a lot of startups, and I see funding going to a lot of startups. And one of the good things I love about the renewable energy sector is that there was a time I was reading a book, and the book said they don't just want men dominating the sector, they also want women. If you come to Africa, when you go to the oil and gas industry, you see more of men. Hardly do you see women. Even if you manage to see women, you don't see them in key positions. You see them as receptionists, you see them as customer care services. But the renewable energy sector welcomes people to become, you know, engineers, welcome people to become the, you know, leading their own firms. Like that's what we want in the sector. So it's like when I said it's creating local jobs, think it big, like in a big way, like it's really creating jobs for both men and women as well. So I really love that. So yeah, it helps with energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is vital in reducing energy demand and advancing net zero, and also upgrading infrastructure for energy efficiency, such as buildings and appliances, will be necessary. So I recently wrote a smart policies for smart cities. And one of the key things in that policy was, you know, we as a people, right, utilizing renewable energy sources, helping buildings and upgrading infrastructures for energy efficiency. When you go to old modern houses, when I was in Germany, so I was carrying out a survey because I was working on a project. So I was carrying out a survey and I was asking, why is it that majority of the houses here, they don't want to install solar panels, but in Africa, it's very loud. Like you come, you want us to install, you want us to do this, want us to do that, and we are trying our best. But we are looking at, okay, where these technologies are coming from, why are they not utilizing it? So I was very sad to find out that majority of them said that they don't want to modify their houses. Like they don't want to modify their homes because it's old, that is in this style and is in that style. And that's some of the responses I got. But then it will really help with, with the upgrading the infrastructure for energy efficiency. And so I was thinking, like, okay, if there are also incentives from government when you install the solar panel, a lot of people too would want to look into installing it in their homes. So we should think beyond modification of our houses. We should think about sustainability. We should think about efficiency as well. So yeah, another way is smart grids and energy management systems will also contribute to optimizing energy use and reducing waste. So I also worked on a project for e-mobility. We are trying to get the waste that's using biomass, converting it to energy sources for electric mobility. And that was actually the project, we did it in Berlin. So we worked on this project, trying to see how farm crops, the waste, how the waste, right, from that, how the energy sector can utilize the waste from plants, from crops, like the waste, how they can utilize it, convert it to fuel source, for the electric mobility sector. So trying to, like I said, at the end of this lecture, I'm hoping that we will think about innovative ways that we can combat this climate change crisis. Like I would really love that, yeah, we don't just listen, we don't just tell people about climate change crisis. Even when I teach, when I lecture, wherever I go, I try to tell them that they should think about not just adapting. Now they should think about mitigating. Mitigating, right, brings about thinking about innovative technologies that you can create to combat this climate change. And according to Antonio Guterres, that's the United Nations Secretary General, he said to get to the net zero target, we will need innovative technologies. Like we can't do it just by adapting. We can't do it just by like we would need to think about ways to create these solutions. So next slide, please. Yeah, I talked about policy regulation and not just the energy sector, because policy in Africa has become a bottleneck into implementation of majority of the technologies that will help us advance. Africa has a lot of paperwork. When I mean paperwork, a lot of paperwork, a lot of good policies that are not being implemented. And so one of the things we're looking at, we are hoping that at the end of the day, like government will help us, not just go to COP, not just go to the conference of parties, not just go to UNGA, not just go to the UN, not just go to all of these conferences. We want at the end of the day, when you come back, you are able to look at these policies, you are able to implement them, like to help us transition to the net zero. Because a lot of times when you create technological solutions, you look at the community or you look at the country where you are in. Before you can implement some of your ideas, you need to go through, there's a lot of policy regulation, there's a lot of legal frameworks that have to be done to facilitate that processes. So we're this one now, not just, okay, fine, let me not say this is just a government thing. Also, you can write very smart policies and then you can push it forward and urge the government, because policy comes with advocacy. So when you write your policies, you look at advocacy and like urge the government to implement these policies. A lot of times I contribute to various youth statements, a whole lot of statements, a lot of policies and the rest of it. But then it hurts me so much that you see that very nice policies that are not being implemented. Like that if these policies are being implemented, it could help us move further to the net zero goal. So government plays a very significant role in the net zero transition by providing support and incentives for clean energy as well. Policies like carbon pricing and setting emissions reduction targets help drive sustainable practices. And international agreements and standards further promote sustainability worldwide. So when we talk about policies like carbon pricing and setting emissions reduction targets help drive sustainability practice, I want to even look at businesses. Recently, I like what I would say is being out there as regards to businesses. I'm a sustainability consultant for many businesses, and I don't just want business to gaining green certifications. A lot of businesses, they just want to get green certifications, but they don't want to even put out the practice of, becoming green business per se, when it comes to their manufacturing processes, their production processes, like the whole supply chain. Let's look at it. What are the measures that are taken? What are they doing to ensure sustainability? You come to some factories in Africa, you'll see that they only care about manufacturing, producing, and then shipping up to consumers. They don't care about the waste that comes out after manufacturing that product. When you go to cement industries, you go to brewery industries where they make all these beers and the rest of it. They don't care about that waste. And that waste is definitely going to somewhere else. Sometimes the waste is so much that they don't know how to combat the waste. They don't even know where to put the waste. And this is one big issue that we are facing in Africa. It clogs our drainage system. Like it clogs most of the, and then you even see, that brings about flood and the whole flood crisis and more. You see a lot of waste in different places, and you ask yourself, where is this waste eventually going to? And some of those waste, if you tell me, if you even leave them in 50 years' time, they're not going to decompose depending on the kind of waste. So these are policies that are needed to be in place, right, to help us get to this net zero transition goals. Next slide, please. Now, I said I will also talk about the clean transportation sector. Yeah, the transportation sector is something that there's every one of us, right? We use one means or the other of transportation. When I was looking at Netherlands the other day, I was looking at Barcelona the other day. I like the fact that majority of them now uses bicycles. Like when you even go to Switzerland, a lot of places uses bicycles, to cut down carbon emissions. Today we see the electric vehicles, we see electric trains, we see electric transportation. Now let me come back to Africa. Of recent in my country, there's a blue whale train that was launched, but then I hoping to see more as regards to people using bicycles, as regards to electric vehicles and all. But it's not easy. You see this the net zero transition. It's not going to be easy. But the truth is that when you take just one little action that each and every one of us would take, would amount to something bigger. But I can't tell you it's easy. It's not easy telling people to stop using fossil fuel generators. It's not easy telling, because these are some of the things that are accustomed to already. So also, even in the climate change crisis, one of the things we hope to combat is behavioral change, because so many people are used to so many things. So telling them to change is actually not easy for them. Like it's a big deal. It's just like telling people who import generators that they should stop importing generators and they should start importing solar panels. This transition into that new business, it's not going to be easy, because this, let me say, something is a business probably they don't understand before. So yeah, transitioning is not easy, if I would tell you the truth, but then it is something that is necessary. So transitioning to the clean transportation, we are looking at gas emissions. The transportation sector is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, like a major contributor, because majority of our cars uses fossil fuels, right? So, and we're looking at transitioning into electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, that is the EVs, and hybrid vehicles play a crucial role in transitioning to clean energy transportation. Because if we have more of EVs, then we are looking at a stop to using fossil fuels in our cars, right? If we have more electric trains, electric vehicles, and then we use more bicycles, then we can see that, okay, there's going to be a very huge pattern in the transition, in the transition goal. But when we keep on those, like in my country, you see some people have like 5 cars, and those 5 cars, they are filled with what are they calling it? Like they have fuels in them and all the fossil fuels in them and all of those things, and they drive these cars. And yeah, when you talk about the transportation sector, it contributes a lot, because every one of us uses one means of transport or the other. Is it that you use an Uber if you don't drive, or use a train, or you use one transport or the other. So you get. So transitioning is not going to be easy, like I said, but it's something that is necessary. And we're looking, into transitioning to EVs. I just hope that very soon EVs as well will be very cheap, because as at now is expensive, if I would say. Well, so we want to reduce far belt transportation, and the development of EV charging infrastructure as well, not just creating the EVs. Recently, I took a picture with our very first Nigerian assembled electric vehicles. Yeah, I took a picture with it in a conference, and most of the questions we are asking that as much as there will be EVs, there will also be, infrastructure that will be put in place to enable this EV charging as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, business and finance. I like this part because I'm from the business and finance sector. By degree. Yeah, I'm currently also doing my MBA. So businesses have a crucial role to play in driving the net zero transition, and also investment in clean energy projects and the rise of green bonds and sustainable investing provide financial avenues for this transition. Like I mentioned, like some of these businesses, during the time I was talking about the policy regulations and all, I said some of these businesses, they have a big role to play as well, from their manufacturing processes to their production to their shipment and all of these things. They have a very big role to play as well. So climate change actions is a collective one. It's not just for me alone. It's not just for you alone. It's not just for the government alone. It's not just for policymakers alone. It's not just for manufacturing. Like, it's a collective action. Each and every one of us have a role to play, and the role actually, it's where we are. What can we do as an educator? What do you do? Do you teach people about climate change crisis? As a child, what do you do? Did you ensure that you carry and you dispose your waste properly? As government, what do you do? Do you ensure that there's enforcement of the right policies to help us move to the net zero goal? Each and every one of us has a role to play. And like I say, investment in clean energy, business can therefore move, because a lot of industries, they're the ones that consume energy, because they are the ones that manufacture a lot of products. So they can help us move from using fossil fuel based products, fossil fuels, to utilizing clean energy solutions. Even for it goes down to their staff. What kind of cars do you buy for your staff? Like, what kind of cars did you use for transportation of your staff? What kind of shipment, like what kind of transportation do you use for your goods and services? So it also goes down to those businesses and industries as well. So these are ways that they can think, convert to using electric vehicles, convert to using solar powers, convert to using wind turbines, and the rest of these are ways they can actually transition their businesses and take actions as well. And hopefully, I see more businesses in Africa, especially the very giant ones like Dangote Cement. I see them, trying to transition and all of those things. So it's a good start for us as well. Yeah. Although, like I said, it's a slow process, but then if we take actions collectively, the end result will be very big. Next slide, please. And I also mentioned behavioral change. When we talk about awareness and behavior change, a lot of people are already used to so many things, so it's very difficult for them to just wake up and say, I want to change and start using this thing, I want to do this or that. Like, it's not going to be easy, but it is very possible. So we want to create awareness, and this is just like as I'm on this class, in this class, right? And just like Prof is doing, create awareness through lectures, create awareness through education, create awareness. You don't want to know if the person actually has gone to school before or not. You can go to remote villages. You tell them, this plastic, do not dump it here. Try to get a bin. You can even buy the bin for them. You see, I'm very impressed with what youths are doing today, like within their community, cleaning up their community. At least when you go to communities and you clean them up like 2 times, it leaves this a change in behavior in mind in them. Like, when they don't see you the next time, they believe that, oh, because this place was as in maybe clean throughout this month, let's go back, let's make it clean again this next month, let's make it clean, let's keep on doing this. It brings about that change. So change begins with you. You can't actually just influence people like that without being the change that you are seeking to see. So you can start with you cleaning up your community. So when you are telling them, do this, do that, you as well practice it. So awareness plays a very public awareness plays a very big role. Education plays a very big role. Educate the public, engaging the public in understanding climate change and promoting energy conservation will drive a meaningful behavior change. Like I said, when discussing this, I don't like to use too many technical terms because I don't know who is in the audience, right? So, but it just telling them about climate change crisis, showing them from videos. So, oh, look at what is happening. Look at all, and some of them must have experienced it, and telling them these are little things that you can do. These are small actions that you can take. You see that it's actually going to go a long way, right? So, educating them, you don't need to say the UNF CCC framework. You don't need to use too many technicalities. Just in a small way, you are able to pass the knowledge to them, and that's it. So public awareness and education are essential components of achieving the net zero transition. Each individual has a responsibility to contribute to achieving net zero emissions. Whether you're a scientist, a policymaker, government, a youth, whatever you are, you can actually play a role in this. Next slide, please. So challenges and solutions. The net zero transition comes with its share of challenges, like I said, including technical and financial obstacles. So ensuring an equitable transition where every region and community benefit is crucial. Like I said, each and every one of us can start from our community. And again, I also mentioned the financial challenges. I mentioned the technical challenges as well. But that doesn't mean that we cannot all play a role or we cannot all get to that goal. So wherever you are, whatever you can do to take action, you can do it. Whether it's in the remote villages, if it is just to do proper waste management, you know how to put your solid waste, your liquid waste, your paper waste, your plastic waste, those waste. Just proper waste management is even enough for you. You don't have to be an educator, you don't have to be a professor, you don't have to be, we can all do that. So yeah. And then we have manufacturers, we have youths, we have other people that we are looking to carry out diverse strategies in helping us get to the net zero goal. Yeah, and collaboration between government, businesses, civil society, and individuals is necessary to overcome these challenges and drive the transition forward. The truth is that if we don't do it together, we are not getting to that net zero goal. One thing with goals, for us to have goals, right, it comes with having like they say, we are better together. That's actually that's a phrase that has been on since, that we are better together. For us to actually get to that goal, even if you create a policy today, you would need the government to implement it. When the government implements that policies, you will need businesses to take actions as regards to those policies that are being implemented. You see, so it will take collective action to get to that net zero goal. Like I was telling somebody, fine, government can fund institutions, academias, into carrying out research for private sectors to be able to manufacture, technological solutions that can help us combat the net zero goal. So you see, it will take collaborative efforts to get to that goal. It will take collaborative efforts to take businesses, it will take government, to take academias, it will take youth, it will take everyone to get to that goal, because we are better together. One person cannot achieve it on their own. And climate change crisis is something that affects us differently. Like individually, it affects us. Collectively, as a community, it affects us. And even in the global world, like, it affects every one of us. So we will need to come together, think of measures that we would have to take to actually, combat these challenges. Next slide, please. So I wasn't sure of the audience that I was speaking with too, but I was hoping some people were youth. So, like I said, fresh perspectives and innovative ideas. You should bring a fresh perspective and innovative ideas to the table. Onboarding by traditional approaches. They offer new insights and creative thinking. As youth, should think about creative, things that we can create and that can help us lead to effective solutions for climate change, climate challenges. Also, we should look at long-term stakeholders, because youth, I believe, have a vested interest in shaping climate policies. So that we inherit the consequences of climate change and are truly invested in forging a sustainable low carbon future. So, like I said, the changes that we are trying to create now, the innovations that we are trying to create now, it's not just for the now. It's for our future. We are looking at sustainability. We are looking at something that is going to be sustainable for our future generations. So nobody comes tomorrow and starts saying, when our forefathers was here, because they like saying that in Africa a lot. They will say it's because of the forefathers. That's why this thing happened. It's because of the ancestors. That's why this one happened. But now change is here. So it begins with us, like I said. And if we want our children to come and not point accusing fingers, we can as well try to look at sustainable solutions that we can create that will not just be sustainable for us, but also for them on the long term road. The long term. Yeah, next slide, please. Like I said, we are catalysts for change. Young people are catalysts for change. Even older people are also catalysts for change. They are at the forefront of climate activism, organizing protests, engaging in advocacy, and using social media platforms for awareness rising. Their activism puts pressure on governments and decision makers to prioritize climate action during COP meetings and energizes the entire movement. Also, youth representation contributes to diversity within the decision-making process. They bring unique experiences, cultures, and perspectives, ensuring a more inclusive and comprehensive approach to tackling climate change. Like I said, through advocacy, we can get governments to implement policies for us, right? Like through not when they go to their COP meetings and you come back to your country and you see what your government promised is not being achieved, right? You are able to tell the government and tell them, set this thing during COP 27, set this thing during COP 26. Why is it not being achieved? Why are you not talking about this? Let me tell you something that I did. Let me tell you something that I did during in COP 26. I wasn't at COP 26, but my government made some promises in COP 26. And later on, as at October last year, no, rather September last year, I didn't find anything as regards to implementation of those policies. And I went on to join there's this thing called Nigerian Policy Academy. And when I went to the Nigerian Policy Academy, I drafted together with my team, we drafted a policy to combat, to move beyond fossil fuels and ensure economic and economic stability in our country. And by February 2023, that policy, was implemented. Like the old promises that they made during COP, at least we could see changes in that because media carried it, newspapers carried it, and when they saw that, so people are coming to urge them to do this thing, they moved ahead to do it. So youth actually play a very vital role. When you go to COP conferences, don't just go there because you want to be present in the engagement process or in the press processes. Listen very well and come back, develop a report so that they know that, this person is actually watching us or this person followed the news. They know that, yes, okay, we saw it somewhere in the media, that somebody posted on social media that I said this thing. So there is this fear that these things must be implemented. These things must be implemented. I encourage Africa youth a lot. When you go to conferences, take your book and pen, open your eyes, listen to what they are saying. So when you come back and somebody is saying another thing, you are able to hold them responsible. Not when we went to COP27, they talked about loss and damage funds. Until today, we are still looking for the loss and damage funds. That will, that kind of thing. I think maybe if the youths were not there, maybe nobody will be hearing about it again because it's the youth that have been protesting since as regards to the loss and damage funds. So youth are catalysts for change. Like I said, it's not just youths, children, all the people, everybody are catalysts for change. Please, the next slide, please. Yeah, this is my conclusion. It's been a wonderful time with you all. I really loved this session. So to conclude, it is clear that urgent action is required to combat climate change and achieve net zero transition. And also energy trends such as the transition to renewable energy and clean transportation are key to this endeavor as well. And it is also important that we all play our part, understanding the importance of net zero transition and making collective efforts to create a sustainable future. Like I say, in conclusion, right, let me just tell you, we are better together. Collaboratively, we can do a lot. And you taking your own small actions is going to lead to a bigger one. So I will just conclude with this, tell you that take climate actions today. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shizoda, for your enlightening presentation. And now let's delve deeper into our discussion. And I will start first by asking Dr. Shizom Ubaboko, as you are an economist, we need to hear from also your side, your perspectives on our today's topic, climate change and sustainability concerns in Africa. And we also would like to know how can we better integrate economic considerations into climate policies and sustainability efforts in Africa, while ensuring equity and that benefits will go to all sectors of the society, including women, youth, and the vulnerable of the society.
Thank you. Thanks, Shizoba, for that very interesting presentation. Well, I think this is a very important topic. Climate change has been kind of like a buzzword for the last, few years, and a lot of people actually use it for their political ends, and they don't really give it as much attention as it should deserve. I think it's a very good idea that we are having this conference. Yeah, a lot of good points have been made about the benefits of having climate change actions taken in terms of trying to modify behavior. And this is all, I think, very correct. I think everybody, or most of us, would agree that those points are valid. Okay? But the perspective I want to bring is maybe something a little different also. One big reason why climate change action has not really taken off, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, I think Chizoba already mentioned a couple of those. One of them, the very important one, is the idea of lack of adequate funding and the lack of technical or technological advancement. Okay. Africa, as Professor Hebashala said earlier, contributes only maybe 7% or thereabouts to global emissions. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 3% or thereabouts. It's really minuscule. And the effect of climate change on Africa is extraordinary, right? I recently published a paper in the Journal of Environmental Economics, where we said if there was a 1% increase, 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature, it will lead to a 9% decrease in livestock production or livestock, whatever. And this was worldwide. When it's narrowed down to Africa, it rises to about 23% decrease. So a 1% increase in, or 1 degree increase in temperature leading to a 23% decrease in livestock production is massive, is absolutely massive, right? So the continent that is bearing the biggest brunt of this climate change effect is actually Africa, but then they are contributing the least. So when you now say, okay, we are trying to solve this problem at a global level, everybody make your own contribution. Are you expecting everybody to contribute equally? Probably not, okay? So for example, Brazil has the Amazon rainforest, and it's the US pays Brazil a lot of money to maintain the forest. The second biggest single location forest is in Africa, the Congo Basin, mostly in Gabon and Central African Republic. And they have to also maintain this. So basically what I'm saying is there's a trade-off between, do we cut down this forest to make money, to feed, or do we preserve it for the sake of the environment? And this idea of trade-offs is always relevant. There's this idea that you cannot gain something without giving up something else. So if you think about it, you're a family, you have, some piece of land somewhere, but your family is not able to eat. So the hard question he has to answer now is, as the head of the family, do I sell my land and get food to eat, or do I go hungry and keep the land? You might think it's an easy decision to make, but it's really not. Especially in Africa, land is very important. It's like an ancestral thing that you pass down from family, generation to generation. So Africa is always making this, idea. I mean, the chairman, the head of the United Nations, did make the statement that no country should have to make the choice between feeding and climate action. And often this is what it comes down to. If there was enough resources, then everybody would do everything that they needed to do to reduce the climate change effects. But sometimes there is this trade-off, right? So you're trying to conserve the environment, you're trying to bring up policies that will make things better for the future. At the same time, you're trying to make use of the resources that you do have to better the lives of your people in the country. And the balance is not often clear. I think going pointedly to the question that was asked about how this could influence different groups, I think climate change has disparate effects on different groups of people. The people who are less well off tend to suffer the worst. And so, by the sense of social welfare, it makes sense for everybody to agree to solve this climate problem or mitigate it as much as possible, so that everybody in general will be better off, especially the people who are the worst hit, wrong of the ladder, people who are the lowest end. They will benefit the most from any kind of climate change action that is taken. So it will also help in solving SDG 10, which is about global inequalities, right? So it will help also, if climate change action is taken, it will reduce inequalities. It will help people who are a little bit less well off to do better. Some of the poorest countries in Africa, Somalia, the Horn of Africa, Sudan, some of those countries, they are tremendously badly hit by this climate change issue. They have all kinds of droughts, and it's also causing political conflicts. It's also causing wars. So, I mean, it extends to many different areas. Okay, so, but I think I'll just kind of stop there.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Shizam. So here we have all agreed today that the impact of climate change on Africa is unquestionable, and the continent is at the forefront of experiencing its effects. So we have all witnessed frequent climate-related disasters, as Professor Shizam has mentioned, like rising temperatures and also Ms. Shizuba, unpredictable rainfall patterns, increasing threat of rising sea levels, like what has happened lately in Libya. So all these challenges are having a negative impact on the economy and the human life. So therefore, African policymakers must support the transition plan towards a low carbon economy, which is of course inevitable and critical to securing a sustainable future for the continent. And here we must, since we are speaking about the plan, so these plans should be innovative plans, innovative ideas and solutions that we have to adopt, because the traditional solutions, they will not work anymore, especially for the future generations. And here my question is to Ms. Shizuba. Since you do have an extensive experience in climate innovation, so we'd like to hear from you some examples of solutions that have been successfully adopted and they had a positive impact in addressing climate change in your community and maybe in Nigeria, generally speaking. So Ms. Shizuba, please turn on your camera. Okay. You are not audible.
Better now.
Please try to connect your mic.
Okay, can you hear me? My mic is on.
Your mic is on. Okay. But you increase the volume, raise your voice.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly now?
Ah, yes, it's fine. It is better.
Okay. Yeah, I got a question as to what can be done to help us move, like what mitigation processes can be carried out, what solutions can be carried out to ensure that we, get to this net zero goal, and um some activities or some projects that have been done in Africa, some technological solutions that have been done in Africa to ensure that. So I don't know if you know of agrivoltaic. Recently, farmers are exploring agrivoltaics. Agrivoltaics is just having solar panels over crops. So a lot of farms are utilizing that now, having solar panels over crops, and that way they're able to get their own energy from the sun. And also, I talked about biomass when I was presenting. I have a company that I was recently working with, and they were also looking at utilizing waste from plants, creating and using them to create biofuels for cooking stoves. That's clean cooking solutions. And yes, of recently there have been a lot of advocacy. I was on the radio recently to talk about benefits of using clean cooking technologies. So there have been a lot of advocacy around clean cooking, and as well there have been a lot of circulation of clean cooking technologies as well. But one of the issues that we have seen as regards to adopting clean cooking solutions is that it has to do with behavioral change, because a lot of people prefers to use um wood fuels, that's we call them firewoods or charcoals, like the briquettes. They prefer to use them to cook than to use the clean cooking technologies that are being created. And the problem, if you ask them, they tell you that the food that is being cooked with clean cooking fuels, such as woods, is far sweeter than the foods that are being cooked with these clean cooking technologies. So it's not very easy actually having them to adopt that. But now, recently, also, there are some students that I taught during the IRENA expert training by my organization. So they developed a policy, clean cooking policy, and we are currently working on implementing that policy, right? So that's one of the things I can tell you as regards to policy. And when it comes to technology as well, we have a lot of technologies, such as people using physics and urine to create biofuels for cooking, biomass for cooking as well. So we have I know of an organization. They have a patent, and they have created these technologies, and they go to remote villages. They have so many people that are installing these technology solutions for. We also have solutions as regards to inverter systems for very that mini inverter systems that are being created for work use, especially youths are utilizing this, and as well as learning hubs and cafes and the rest of them. So they're utilizing these inverter systems that are mini portable, and you can move them. And also we have solutions for that are being created in remote villages, apart from creating mini grids, solar mini grids and all that the communities utilizes, and pay in installment for this microgrid, the solar microgrid. We also have solutions like having a solar booth where communities without electricity, they go there to charge their phones. And sometimes they also rent products such as solar lights. They use them. Maybe they want to power their house for like 2 hours to do little things. So we have solutions, and these solutions, I'm telling you, all of them were created by youth. All of them, both the policies, both the clean cooking technology, both the inverter systems, even the advocacy. When you come to my country, Nigeria, and if you go to Kenya, as I love Kenyans are very writing a lot of policies as well. So when you go to those places, you will see a lot of innovations that are being created. So the good thing about taking action is that you don't have to have a specialty in a particular thing. Just what you're doing can also help in creating actions. Like I know of someone that is moving the SDG 5 agenda for the SDG 5 goal, that's for gender and equity. And she uses waste materials, right? Waste materials. She uses them to create sanitary pads. So you see that she's actually combating two issues. One, because the sanitary pads at the end of the day are very cheap and affordable for these people in the community to use, and she uses the waste from fashion homes to create these things. So it doesn't have to be too technological. It doesn't have to be high end. It doesn't have to have too many technical frameworks around it. But then it could be small, but it resolves a very bigger issue. So these are some issues that I believe that one can actually take, and that are currently in place in Africa as well, that people are doing to ensure, they play their own role in coming climate change crisis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Shizova. Now I would like to ask Professor Shizam, what, in your opinion, what are the drivers that are needed or let's say required to enhance the green growth achievements in Africa? Because it is now the talk is not about economic growth anymore. The talk is of green growth, and we have to boost more in the industries towards green growth. So what do we need exactly in Africa to enhance our achievements in green growth?
Thank you. Well, the first thing, one of the most important things is we need a lot of injection of funds. Right now it's estimated that to achieve the goals, we should have at least $200 million investment in Africa every year by 2030, and then $400 million every year by 2050. It's a huge amount of money. It's and nobody is sure where the money can come from. But we have to think of ways that we can, apart from depending on the global north for assistance and funds, we can also, as members of the global south, cooperate and look for innovative ways of raising finance to also deal with these issues. Because a major part of it is you have established infrastructure already that is completely built around fossil fuels. And you want to now make this change, you need to reconstruct many of those infrastructures, and it's very expensive. Also the technological know-how, many African nations have been investing heavily in educating the young people on climate change technologies, but a lot more is needed. So, for example, the technologies that are being used in Netherlands, in Germany, and the United States, for example, there needs to be some technology transfer, So if they have discovered already new ways of providing energy that is, cost efficient, that is energy efficient, Some of those things can also be, transferred by some partnership agreements to Africa, and this will also help boost. Now, we will not have to reinvent the wheel, basically. The things that have been done already, we don't have to start researching to do them again. We can just make use of those resources. So those two main things will take us a long way forward. An injection of capital, of cash, to help to make the transition, and to also help to substitute for, for a lot of the opportunity cost of making the change. So when they would have otherwise used some money to do something for the nation, to build roads or whatever infrastructure, using that money to make a green energy transition, there has to be some compensation in terms of the economics of it for it to make sense for them to be able to do it. So that's so thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Shizam. Now I would like to request the floor to ask questions. If you have questions, and please precise if your question is to Dr. Shizam or Ms. Shizova. So let's start from me, please. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Professor Shizova and Shizo, for the insightful lecture. I just have a quick question about climate finance. So when we look at last year, Africa received a commitment of about $10 billion, both from the public and private climate finance sectors. Although the division of the funds itself is more towards energy sector and all other sectors, but the share of the funds attributed to the institutional competency and development is still far less as compared to the other sectors. And from what my research has shown is that Africa, even though sometimes it does get the desired funds, it lacks the institutional capacity to utilize those funds in the first place. Even one of my friends who has a startup in Africa, they did get a grant and they managed to set up their company, but they still struggle to employ and operationalize their idea at a ground level because of the lack of the support from the local governments or from the leaders themselves. So while we look at all of these bigger pictures, I want to know how exactly smaller governments or leaders in Africa are trying to create a very solid base for all of these help to get utilized in a fair manner.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Honestly, what you just said really touched me, and yeah, it touched my heart so much because that is facts, that is truth. And I like when you mentioned that based on your research, because yeah, one of the things that has disrupted the transition is finance, and especially finance for the startup sectors. Like we have a lot of youth with innovative technologies, but getting the grants, getting the funding to create that solution or to implement it is very difficult. And the saddest part of it is when the youth are even complaining of their of how to create their innovative technologies and put it back to lack of funding. You also hear governments telling you that to implement solutions, there's also a lack of funding. And if I'm being sincere with you, there's also a part whereby funding comes and there's poor circulation of funding, or there is other corrupt practices as regards to governance and regulation of this funding. Then we have barriers to people accessing the funds. The truth is, corruption also is a big factor because we have lots of NGOs, lots of organizations. They tell you that they are building something, and then you fund them. At the end of the day, they close up. So in getting these funds, there are actually measures that has been created also so that to ensure that the fund is getting to the right people. So sometimes it's very slow the process can be very, very slow in getting to this founder, in getting to this startup business. But then again, I tell people, when you start a business, when you're looking to build the technology, you have to leave it, as in somehow, you just have to put your mind away from, if the finance doesn't come, you won't build it. I tell you something, during COVID-19, the pandemic, in 2020, I started a business. I started it with no funding. I didn't even have the intentions of starting that business. But I started it because, one, we were at home and I really wanted to do something. I really wanted to touch lives. And I started that business. I started with teaching people how to make, I went to an event planning school. So with my knowledge, I was looking for a way to disseminate my knowledge. I started teaching people decorations, how to do event planning and all of those things, like just, to help them build skill while they're at home. From there, it turned into a business. And I tell you, I didn't start with any fund. There are some businesses, there are some technological solutions, there are some things that we can start even without funds. But some people just want to put their mind in, if the grant doesn't come, if the equity doesn't come, then I don't build. Sometimes you can start, then people know that, yes, you have developed something, and then you can start looking out for those grants and funds. Let there be results to show for it. But some people just start something and they just want that funding to come in. So we have other issues like that. And then we have, like I said, corruption too, whereby the funds go to certain people and they don't utilize it into doing the things that they're supposed to do. And then we also have the part of lack of funding to develop solutions. You can imagine when the government is complaining of investment, the government are complaining of funding, and then even the individual trying to build something is still complaining of the same. During the African Climate Summit, we saw a lot of investment going into adaptation, going to agriculture, going to this and going to that. And I was online. I went to the African Climate Summit page. I saw a lot of people commenting, and what they were saying, the fund is supposed to go here. The fund is supposed to go to this community. The fund is supposed to come for this solution. This fund is supposed to go for this, and they have not even seen the fund. They are in a conference and they are pledging. There are a lot of pledges. They haven't even seen the fund, but they are saying this is where it's supposed to go. This is so with regulating this funding, creating it. It's actually it's strenuous work as well. So we have that, and the whole part, and like you said, based on your research, lack of funding has affected a lot of the transition and all of those things. But I tell you, even whereby we have that issues, we also have the corrupt issues, the corruption, and the old part of it that is also causing that lack of funding. But then I tell people, don't allow that to bring you to a point whereby you don't continue with your project, or you don't continue with your research, or you don't continue. It can be slow, because without funding, yes, so many things can be slow. But don't let it get to a point whereby you are not able to start something because the funding doesn't come. Because if you're able to start, and then you can even use the profit of your business to scale it up, yeah, you can do that. A lot of businesses that were building didn't start with funding. So they even start with, with this grant and all of these things. So we can actually think of ways we can start even without getting this, this funding. Let's get to a very big stage, and then we start even looking for the funding. Let's show results. Let's show workings. Because if we want to put our mind all upon the funding, many of us will not create any solutions. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Shizam, want to add something to this point? Okay, so Ms. Shizova, also here I would like to ask you one thing, that we all know that Africa is facing that main issue of data collection and keeping statistics and records. So how could we help people if we don't have enough data? So here, if we are receiving also funds, so we don't know who should get the assistance and support. So also data is a very important matter here that we should always think about and how to resolve it. So from your experience, have you seen that there is some efforts being employed there in your community, or let's speak about Nigeria, to find solution for data and to know exactly who are the vulnerable groups, the people who are most affected from climate change, or is still the same concern is there?
Thank you very much. I didn't get the question clearly, but I think I had something around visa. Like, I just want to be sure that it's visa that I ate. Sorry,
But
if the question can be typed on the chat box, I
no,
will appreciate that as well.
the question is regarding data and collecting information about the vulnerable groups in your society, about youth, about villages that are the most affected from climate change. So, is there any employed efforts that you have done in your organization or in your communities regarding this? It is not about visa. I'm speaking about data collection.
Okay. Okay, sorry, that wasn't very clear to me. I was thinking we're talking about visa as well. So you talked about I think you said something around Lagos, Nigeria, the most places that have been affected the most, that the data, sorry, you said, is it the data, the data isn't clear, or?
Yes, do you have information there about the groups who are most affected, villages, ethnic groups, women, or this is data available, or you are like other African nations, you are facing the same challenge?
Oh, well, when it comes to climate change, you know, the truth is generally more women are being affected, right, with the climate change crisis when you look at it. And then we have issues with, and yet there are some ethnicities that are being affected the most based off on, is it that because they are very close to where we have these issues with sea level rise, or we have the issues with drought a lot. When it comes to northern Nigeria, northern part of the Nigeria, we have a lot of issues as regards to drought because of because they are in the Sahel region, they lack water, so now they face the old drought issues already. So when you come to the western part of Nigeria, you have issues as regards to sea level rise, because the western part of Nigeria is more like they are around the sea, like they have what we call we have even there's something we call the third mainland bridge, which is which is actually the longest bridge in West Africa. So you see, we have like so they faces this issue as regards to sea level rise. When we come to the southern region, they face the oil exploration and land erosion a lot, because they have because of the exploration within their region, and all of them, because they have the oil resources more. So they face all of those things with biodiversity loss and all of those things. So yeah, so each region have different ways it is being affected, and each region actually is affected. You have, like, when you come to the northern part of Nigeria, the problem is that they are actually the poorest when it comes to Nigeria, and they have like the larger population. So it affects more people in that region. And when it comes to education, it is not easily being assessed there because of religion. So they have more people being affected in a way. So it's more like that. So when it comes to marginalization of and funds, when it comes to funding distribution, we have the southeasterners suffer the most, because majority of the funds doesn't really go there due to political issue. So, like, let me say, you are talking about climate change crisis and all of those things. They will actually consider those people from the north, from the southwest first, before they even consider those from the southeast. So you have like political influence as well. So we have different ways that are being affected. And yes, of course, when it comes to climate change crisis, women are most affected the most, because and because when you talk about migration, we want to look at climate change migration. Like I said, climate change crisis is not the one that affects only the planet. It affects lives, it affects properties, it affects, like, the social and economical aspect of one's life. So let's talk about migration. If you see the climate change crisis now, the issues with migration is that when you migrate, women are being prone to being raped. And women, because they don't have the same capacity or the same strength as men, they might not even get to where they are even trying to migrate to. They might even die before that time. And because they are the ones that bear the brunt of all this that they are the ones to take care of the children and all of those things. So it comes with a lot of challenges. And even when it comes to when we have drought issues in the north, whereby they are not able to take their bath during menstrual cycles and all of those things, it's another issue as well. So when I talk about climate change crisis is not just about sea level rise and wildfires. It affects lives and properties as well. So you see how it is now when we try to categorize it gender wise, when we categorize it ethnicity wise, or when we categorize it with maybe population and all of those things. So yeah, and we have data. Through research, we're able to gain more and more data. When you go to we have a council called the Nigerian Climate Change Council. So this place you can find a lot of data around that. And also we have we have the United Nations in Nigeria. They have a lot of data around that can also help you if in case you're doing a research about that as well. It can also help you. And I believe they also have some of these bodies and all of these things in other African countries and other African regions as well. Thank you.
Please, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Mr. Zoba and Mr. Chizo. Thank you for the lecture as well as the panel. So I just want to one statement made by Dr. Chizo really resonated with me that there's a trade-off when it comes to global south and energy transition, and this is because global south cannot afford to address climate change on its own. We have to also address socio-economic inequality at the same time. So when Ms. Tizova was presenting, she was talking about the advantages of renewables and how that creates local jobs. But then in that context, we have to also talk about just transition, which we were briefly touching upon, which is basically workers not facing the brunt of the shift to a low carbon economy, where they are having job losses and also, entire communities are being disproportionately affected. Now, while we are going for net zero transition, just transition is equally important. And when it comes to the shift to carbon neutrality, there's a lot of disproportionality which comes up. First is the high level of privatization in this field, which can lead to a less amount of agency which the government has. To add to that, these are very capital intensive industries. So whereas the traditional energy resources such as coal, so anything extractive is very labor intensive. These are much more capital intensive. Also heavily mechanized. Even in our own university, we boast of solar energy, but we also say that we use drones to clean the solar panels. That itself reflects how that this entire renewable energy is heavily mechanized and has very less potential for labor. And to add to that, a global north and its institutions such as WTO in the climate change, in negotiations on energy policies, they keep on rolling back on social welfare policies of the government, and they encourage governments to adopt competitive models of low labor costs while still pushing for this energy transition. So this basically leads to a problem of understanding this from an environmental science perspective versus justice perspective. And I just want to know, in the global south, which already has history of human rights violations, labor violations, how to have a more just model of transitions, and what are some good case studies into this? Thank you. This goes out to both Professor Chizong and also to the managers.
Okay, Ms. Shizova, you would like to give your perspective? Hello?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes. So
Okay,
let's start first by your perspectives, then we will hear Dr. Shizong's perspective after yours. So please start. You are not audible.
Oh, you mean I should start off? I thought someone else is speaking.
Okay, it's fine. So then we will take the question from here. Thank you.
That's a very fantastic question. You know, much of economics is all about trade-offs. Really, you can't have everything of what you really want without giving up something else that you kind of also want. So you're really asking about just transition. So basically, the idea that if you are moving from whatever labor-intensive, dirty energy sector to the more capital-intensive, clean energy sector, you tend to have some job losses. And for me, I think this is normal. In any kind of transition, you tend to have some of these, transitional jobs. When there was a move from people who manually do calculations to when the calculator was invented, you had a lot of people who tended to lose their job, but they had to adapt. They had to find new ways of providing their service or learn new skills to be able to be relevant to the new industry. So also this rise of AI now, a lot of people are losing jobs, but they are kind of trying to also adapt, learning new skills and moving to new sectors. So I think that the people who are currently in the sectors where they might be irrelevant, they will need to upgrade their skills. They will need to get new skills that will make them relevant in the new sector. And of course, as Chizoba had said earlier, there are going to be a plethora of new, opportunities available as well, right? So, new industries will be springing up that were never there before. So if the skills are transferable, if the skills are translatable, then those people will not be left in the lurch. They will be able to still provide their services in the new sector. I mean, sometimes, of course, every government that is sensible tries to make the balance. A sensible government doesn't want to just completely shut down industry and clear out all the jobs there. They always want to make a balance, and that's why this transition may not happen instantaneously. It will probably be a process. And maybe over the period of time that it will take for the energy mix to be tuned more towards green energy, people will have the time to be able to upskill and learn to be able to adapt to the new sectors. So I think being scared of job losses is not a reason why action should not be taken. I think action should still be taken, but there should also be this idea of training and retraining and helping people who will otherwise feel like they are no longer relevant to still find a place in the new energy sector. That's my view on that.
Thank you, Dr. Shizam. Also, I would like you to add something that in our efforts to implement these plans to just transition to green economy, we are always taking in consideration three factors: the economic factors, the social factors, and the environmental factors. So all are working together. We should stop thinking that if we are enabling environment, we are stopping the economic factor and industries will not grow, or we will have there will be no social life and future and social insurance for different groups in the society. So why not shifting our mind and saying that this planet, it is not only for us, it is for us and for the environment, for climate, for everyone. So we can grow together. We can reach high economic sustainability and at the same time conserve the environment while working in the different pillars on the same track, which is economic, environment, and social. And here, regarding the just transition is about thinking about vulnerable groups, people who will get mostly affected by all that sudden shift from traditional industries towards the renewable energy and clean industries. So here, again, that this is my point of data to collect data about that is our population. We should know who are the women that are in rural areas that are depending on agricultural production, or they are living in places will be in future affected by climate disasters. Enable these women think about youth in these areas, especially in rural areas, and other vulnerable ethnic groups that are not getting equal share of the wealth in the society. So we need to think about social, and of course, yes, this will not happen unless we do have a good leadership, and of course, there's all the political and economic governance rules are applied. So we can add to our three pillars that I have mentioned: social, environmental, and economic, the political will. So, and then we can reach the just transition. Ms. Shizuka, would like to add something here, or we move to our next question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's get the final question, please.
Hello, thank you so much. So my question is just an extension of my colleague's previous question about just transition and energy transition. So when we talk about energy transition, we are moving away, like we started moving away from paper to a paperless society. We started digitalizing our societies. So there was a controversy around cobalt mining in Congo, right? How children were being exploited and everything. So my question is, while we are talking about climate change and energy transition, we have a direct consequence of climate change on vulnerable populations, especially in developing and underdeveloped world. But on the other hand, when we talk about energy transition and moving from fossil fuel-based sources to like renewable sources like solar power, or for that matter, equipments that use semiconductor chips. So, don't you think that these populations are directly and indirectly under the consequence of climate change?
Yes, okay, let's have one follow-up question.
As very well put together with interns at the center, the entire issue of the cobalt mining. So what I was trying to also highlight in my initial question was that behind all of this discourse lies the problem of capitalism. That is the underlying cause of climate change, because capitalism and colonialism led to for the disproportionality we have. So when it comes to at this juncture point for the global south, we have an opportunity to change things for better, not just have a transition to clean energy, to net zero, but also have a transition which which separates the global south from its historical tendency of labor violations, historical tendencies of showcasing something and presenting something else. The entire issue of greenwashing is also emerged, where many countries and many small initiatives have just tried to cluster a couple of things which appear climate friendly, but are just meaningless pursuits. So if we can separate all this cloud and actually focus on the substance, and in the transition we also focus on getting the labor more rights, getting the labor more voices and opinions, and not just replicate what already happens. In that case, just transition would also be meaningful. So if we can also give some expression on that.
So, Ms. Shizuka, if you can share some of your expertise, experience, examples where the social organization and women organization have been involved in getting heard while writing all these plans for just transition. So please, if you can share some insights from your experience there.
Okay, first I would start with saying that all the SDG goals are interlinked. From SDG 1 to SDG 17, they're all interlinked together. So actually everything that we are doing is to actually get to the net zero goal. If you look at it, SDG 4, which is quality education, just like what we're doing, trying to create awareness, talk about climate change crisis, is still as well linked to SDG 13. So SDG 7, which is clean energy, clean and affordable energy, is as well linked to SDG 13, which we believe that utilizing these resources would actually lead to, a better climate for all, and as well create good jobs for everyone. So doing any of the SDG goals, like accelerating or advocating for any of the SDG goals, doesn't leave any. It's actually one way or the other. You're trying to do something as regards, advancing the other SDG goals. Like I mentioned, SDG 5, which somebody was creating sanitary pad out of waste, actually helps with the circular economy as well. So we see that everything we do is actually interlinked. They actually took their time in creating, the SDG goals, and the reason, like I said, it is not just for only the planet, it's also for the people as well. So everything we do, whether we are doing advocating for SDG 8, SDG 7, whichever SDGs we are advocating for, it's all interlinked. Like I said, it to take collaborative measures to get to the SDG goals. While I'm not very clear on the questions as regards to social organizations within Africa that are, sorry, can you come again with that?
They are speaking about just transition, and that labor, like child labor and women and the other vulnerable groups, they should be heard, and we should take care of their requirements while planning for our just transition. So I'm asking you, do you have there in Nigeria such type of planning where organizations, labor organization, women organization, social civil rights organization are called to discussion and to get heard, and also to hear the other side, not only the government side perspective or international organization perspective?
Yes, we have a lot of organizations as that. Like we have a lot of organizations. We have NGOs as that. As at August, I was with 2 other NGOs. Like I spoke at their forum on Youth Day. We have about 3 other NGOs as well. So we have a lot of organizations that are doing something as regards to advocating for women and as well children and young girls like that. So it goes beyond creating sanitary pads. Actually, it goes beyond like you see, like human rights activists as well. We have that in Nigeria, but I'll tell you that when you go to the northern region of Nigeria, it's much difficult to get women and young girls to go to school because of religion, right? So there's also this religion that I'm actually in the northern part of Nigeria. So there's actually this religion that the religion and the cultural, that there's this cultural barriers that create a barrier for women and girls to go to get formal education, right? They believe these women, these girls are meant for the kitchen, they're meant to be wives and all of those things. But notwithstanding, we have NGOs, a lot of NGOs actually in the north that are actually combating this, are actually fighting and combating this. We also have the presence of international NGOs as well in my country, and I believe there's so many as well in Africa. But there's also challenges that are very clear that we see, from political challenges, from social challenges, which would have to be like maybe religion barriers and all those things. When it comes to politics and when it comes to the educational sectors, you find very few number of women who are in politics, who are even in very key positions, or who are vice chancellors in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I think we have about only 3 women that are vice chancellors, and we have many universities, like multiple universities available. But you see, we just have very few women. So apart from the fact that we have like let me say at a low level, we have the issues of formal education for women and girls. We still have at the high levels barriers that limits these women and these girls, to do more. So we have such barriers. We still have barriers whereby they tell you no, it's a woman's job, and it's a man's job, it's not a woman's job. We still have those barriers like that. Even in sectors, like I told you, the oil and gas industry as well, we have those kind of barriers. But then we are breaking it one at a time. We are breaking those barriers one at a time. Women are beginning, majority of companies, like very high-level companies, they are beginning to make women, executives, CEOs, put them in high positions as well. But we hope to see that more in when we come to politics, because I believe that women, with the way they are structured, they have their children at heart. So when they are implementing policies, they want to look at what is beneficial for my children, what is beneficial for the community. They look at it that way. Sorry to say, but that's how they So I even like to see more women in delegations, like going for UNFCCCs and the other conferences. I like to see them there, because when they make decisions, whether they're delegating or they're negotiating, they put their people at heart, they put their children at heart, they put their community at heart before they make certain decisions. So it's actually good to see them there. So yeah, we have such presence. We have NGOs, we have international organizations, and yeah, we have local organizations as well, tackling that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shizova. Let's now hear the final closing remarks from Dr. Shizom.
Okay, the questions you asked were very important questions. So you have this child labor thing. I mean, of course, everybody is saying transit to clean energy, but clean energy is in a way clean, but in a way it's also dirty, because the raw materials you use to produce the batteries, the lithium, for example, and the cobalt you mentioned. Mali just had a coup. They are one of the biggest producers of lithium. They sell to France and other countries. If you go to the mines, children are exploited. In Congo, they produce cobalt, children are exploited. In some mines, if you're caught stealing, you could have your hands chopped up. It could be something as drastic as that. Even in Nigeria, I'm aware of some companies that do recycling. To gather those materials, they also utilize child labor. They ask the children to go out and try to gather those recyclable materials. Okay, so I really believe that there needs to be a fundamental change in the way the whole world sees this issue. So as I said in my first remarks, it's become a buzzword, but is there really commitment to making change, causing change in the way these resources are extracted? There needs to be. I think it's not enough for us to say that, okay, we are, as we call it, greenwashing. I think that's a very good term for it. We are trying to make changes, we're trying to make transition, but in the process, we are also making a lot of vulnerable people, the young people, the people who are really at the lowest levels of poverty. You make the situation so much worse because you are trying to use this hyper-capitalism, extract as much as possible so you can sell cheaply to the industries that need to make use of it, and then make batteries and other things for clean energy. I think that it needs to be a switch. People need to be paid justly for their efforts, for their labor. There needs to be more improvement in standards in the way these industries are run. So just pay. This happened in the agricultural sector not too long ago, actually. There was this uproar about farmers being exploited. So the fact that you are importing coffee and cocoa and whatever from those farms, or also for sweatshops in some Asian countries where you have sweatshops, people working in very deplorable conditions. The global north began to implement some boycotts. They said, okay, so if you don't make changes in this area, we're not going to buy your shirts, we're not going to buy your materials, we're not going to buy your diamonds. I think something like that also could be implemented. We need to also put a lot of focus on how these resources are extracted, how fairly are people treated. People who are putting their labor, their effort, they need to pay them justly. And then you can say, okay, if you don't pay the workers well, if you don't treat them properly, if you don't have standards of safety and quality in the factories and whatever, then we're not going to buy those resources. And then you will force people to begin to think about those things more carefully. But I think collective action, both from the buyers and the sellers, are important in making this just transition. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Shizoba, for accepting my invitation and making your time and joining us today from Nigeria. I know there is time difference and we are really appreciative that you have accepted our invitation. Thank you so much, Ms. Shizoba, and also I would like to thank Dr. Shizom and my dear students and online guests who have joined us today. So we hope that the insights that we have shared today will contribute to a deeper understanding of the critical issues surrounding climate change and sustainability in Africa. And this is just a start. And we shall continue this dialogue and work collectively towards a more sustainable and resilient future for Africa. So thank you so much, Dr. Shizom and Ms. Shizoba. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a great time with you all today.
Thank you so much, and we shall connect again in future. Thank you. Thank you. So we can end this live streaming, please. They are not ending from their side. This is only. I hope it is close from me. So thank you so much, because other people on the other side are seeing us. So it should be, keep the show going on till then. So thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Sylvia, and all of you for joining us today. We shall continue our discussion, as I have mentioned. So it is not only for today, this is just the beginning, and I hope that all of you will also in future join this new initiative that I have established for Africa Dialogue Forum. So we are just trying to push Africa pose. Let's have Zach. You want to give the final remarks? So thank you so much, and we'll join next sessions in future. So before we end, I would like to thank Dr. Shizom. He's always here and he's giving me full support and coming always. Never say no to my invitation, so I really appreciate. He's really a good friend of mine. So I would like to give. So we will have pictures, and then this is going to be the end of this session. So this is